Journey Beyond Time. Once upon a time, in a galaxy as old as the sparkle of the stars, there lived a young girl named Valeria. Valeria grew up in a small town under a bright blue sky. However, her world wasn't limited to what she could see. She was a science enthusiast who spent every night gazing at the sky, trying to unravel the mysteries behind the stars. Valeria's greatest dream was to travel through time and discover the universe's deepest secrets. One day, Valeria discovered an old laboratory outside the town. This laboratory once belonged to a famous scientist named Professor Alistair. According to legend, Alistair had managed to unlock the secrets of space-time but had vanished, never to return. When Valeria found the laboratory, everything was covered in dust, yet the scientific instruments and notes remained almost intact. In the depths of the laboratory, Valeria found a strange device called the Chronosphere. This machine could bend space-time and allow people to travel through time. As Valeria studied the professor's notes, she began to understand how the machine worked. Valeria decided to activate the machine. Her heart was pounding with excitement. She wanted to travel through time as soon as possible. She stepped inside the chronosphere, touched the buttons, and turned on the machine. Suddenly, a strange aura of energy surrounded her, and she felt the world around her twist and warp, with shapes and colors changing. In an instant, she found herself in a different time period. It was her world, but a past version of it. Everything around her was old, the trees were younger, and the buildings looked different. Valeria began to understand what time really was at that moment. Time travel wasn't just rewinding a memory, it was like feeling the very fabric of the universe. Valeria explored her old town, witnessing the people who lived during her ancestors' time and observing their simple lives. However, there was a problem. Valeria didn't know how to use the chronosphere to return. She spent days rereading the notes and trying to figure out the machine. As Valeria tried to return, she realized that time didn't flow like a river. Time was not a straight line but a fabric full of curves and waves. She was caught in one of these curves and had to find her way back. During this process, she began to understand the fundamental principles of space-time better. She thought about Einstein's theory of general relativity, how mass and energy could warp space-time. She imagined how a massive object, like a black hole, could bend and twist space-time. However, Valeria realized that it wasn't just physical masses but also energy waves that could alter this fabric. These waves, like ripples in a pond, move through space-time, and when they approach a massive energy source, time accelerates or slows down. A discovery lay before Valeria that would take her beyond time. She learned that time didn't just move forward, it could also move backward, and this was just one direction. Valeria decided to reprogram the chronosphere and travel to the future. She had only visited the past so far, but she was more curious about what lay ahead. This time she carefully adjusted the machine, input the coordinates correctly, and pressed the button again. The machine whirred, the world around her warped once more, and Valeria found herself in the future. But this future was not what she expected. The Earth was unrecognizable. Massive cities with towers piercing the sky, flying vehicles, and human-like robots were everywhere. Technology had advanced far beyond what she could have imagined. But something was wrong in this world. People were unhappy, and nature was almost gone. Valeria tried to understand what had happened in this future. She realized that people had become dependent on technology and had destroyed nature. She now understood that time was not just a tool, but also a responsibility. Valeria decided to return to the past to change this future and warn people. But this time, she would not just be an observer, she would actively try to change the future. When Valeria returned to the past, she realized that controlling the flow of time was a great responsibility. She was no longer just a time traveler, she was the guardian of time. She would warn people, using the folds of time to protect the future. But there was one more mystery that had always lingered in her mind: the disappearance of Professor Alistair, the original creator of the Chronosphere. Determined to find answers, Valeria began investigating Alistair's last known whereabouts. She carefully studied the notes left behind in his laboratory, looking for any clues that might indicate where or when he had gone. The notes were cryptic, filled with complex equations and references to places and times that did not seem to exist in her current timeline. However, one phrase stood out: the singularity beyond time. With this clue in hand, Valeria decided to use the chronosphere to search for Alistair in the distant reaches of space and time. She programmed the machine, targeting a point that was neither in the past nor the future but somewhere beyond the conventional flow of time, a singularity where time itself seemed to collapse. When she activated the machine, the world around her distorted more violently than ever before. She felt herself being pulled through a vortex of light and shadow, spiraling through countless possible realities. Finally, the motion stopped, and Valeria found herself standing in a place that defied all logic, a realm where time and space seemed to intersect and loop in impossible ways. In the center of this strange place, Valeria saw a figure. It was an old man, hunched over and surrounded by glowing, ever-changing equations that floated in the air. As she approached, she realized that this was Professor Alistair. "Professor Alistair?" Valeria called out, her voice echoing in the strange space. The old man slowly turned to face her, his eyes filled with a deep wisdom and sadness. "Valeria," he said softly, recognizing her. "I knew you would find me eventually." Valeria asked him what had happened, why he had disappeared, and why he had not returned to his own time. Alistair explained that he had ventured too far into the study of time, discovering the singularity that lay beyond it, a place where all possible futures and pasts intersected. Here, he had become trapped, lost in the infinite possibilities of space-time. "I wanted to understand everything," Alistair said. "But I lost myself in the process. This place, it shows you all the paths time can take, but it also traps you in a loop, unable to return." Valeria realized that Alistair had become a prisoner of his own creation, a victim of his insatiable curiosity. But she also knew that she could not leave him here, lost in this temporal labyrinth. She needed to find a way to bring him back. Using the knowledge she had gained from her own journeys through time, Valeria worked with Alistair to stabilize the space-time fabric around them. Together, they deciphered the equations floating in the air, each representing a different possibility, a different reality. After what felt like an eternity, they managed to locate a path that would lead them back to their original timeline. As they activated the chronosphere one final time, Valeria and Alistair were pulled through the vortex once more, but this time, they emerged back in the familiar surroundings of Alistair's old laboratory. The air was thick with dust, but they were safe. Alistair, now free from the singularity, looked around at the world he had left behind so many years ago. "Thank you, Valeria," Alistair said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've not only saved me but also preserved the knowledge that could have been lost forever." Valeria, now understanding the true weight of her role as the guardian of time, realized that her journey was far from over. With Alistair's guidance, she knew she could better protect the future and guide humanity toward a brighter path.